Zara Patel stood before the towering crystalline spires of the Centauri Institute of Advanced Sciences, her application tablet feeling unusually heavy in her hands. The magnificent structure seemed to pierce the purple sky of Alpha Centauri B's third moon, its architecture defying not just gravity but human understanding of physics itself. The security drone hovering nearby chirped disapprovingly, its sensors no doubt confused by her entirely organic presence among the mostly synthetic and hybrid beings that typically frequented the institute. Zara straightened her back, adjusted her atmospheric suit's pressure settings, and walked forward. She hadn't spent 3 years learning 6 different alien languages and mastering quantum mechanics to be intimidated now. The entrance hall stretched before her like a cathedral built by gods, all sweeping arches and impossible angles that seemed to bend space itself. Holographic displays flickered with equations and diagrams in dozens of different scientific notations, some of which humanity hadn't even discovered yet. Students and faculty members of various species moved through the space with practiced ease, some floating, others walking on ceiling-mounted pathways, and a few simply phasing through solid matter as if it were air. Application purpose? The question came from what appeared to be a shimmer in the air, gradually resolving into a being composed entirely of crystalline geometric patterns. The Institute's infamous admissions officer, Director Valthx. Engineering Division Application, Specialization in Zero-Point Energy Dynamics, Zara replied in perfect standard Galactic, her universal translator turned off to demonstrate her linguistic competence. The crystalline being's patterns shifted slightly, surprise, perhaps? Species designation? Human. The geometric patterns froze for a microsecond. Error. The Centauri Institute does not process applications from pre-Category 3 civilizations. Humanity is currently designated Category 1.4. Zara had prepared for this moment. Under Galactic Educational Statute 7249 Beta, individual exceptions can be made if the applicant demonstrates exceptional ability regardless of species designation. I've prepared a complete portfolio of my work, including my improvements to the Hawking radiation harvester design. The patterns comprising Valthx's form became more complex, almost agitated. That design improvement was submitted by Z. Patel of O. A pause. You created the modified containment field that increased efficiency by 47%? Yes. Along with the quantum tunneling calculator now used by the Proxima Mining Corporation. Zara allowed herself a small smile. I believe you'll find all my credentials in order, despite my species' current designation. The admission officer's crystalline form shifted through several complex configurations before stabilizing. Your credentials are unexpected. However, the Institute has never admitted a Category 1 species representative. The technological gap is considered insurmountable. The stress alone of adapting to our educational methods has been known to cause permanent psychological damage in Category 2 beings. Then I volunteer to be your first test case, Zara replied, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Humanity has always advanced by pushing beyond supposed limitations. We're remarkably adaptable. Indeed. Valthx's patterns swirled thoughtfully. Your application will be reviewed by the full admission board. However, I must warn you, if accepted, you would be subject to the same standards as all other students. There would be no accommodations made for your biological limitations. I wouldn't want any. The admission officer's form expanded slightly. Very well. You will receive our decision within 1 standard solar rotation. Though I feel compelled to inform you that in the Institute's 12,000 years of operation, we have never admitted an applicant from a pre-Category 3 civilization. Then perhaps, Zara said with a slight smile, it's time for that to change. The next 26 hours were the longest of Zara's life. She spent them in her small rented pod in the station's temporary housing section, reviewing advanced physics theorems and trying not to second-guess every word of her interview. The admission board's decision arrived precisely one solar rotation later, manifesting as a holographic message that filled her pod with shifting patterns of light. Candidate Zara Patel, the message began, Director Valthx's crystalline form taking shape in the center of the room. The admission board has reviewed your application, credentials, and supporting materials. Your submission has generated significant debate among our faculty. Zara held her breath. While several board members expressed concern about establishing a precedent, your theoretical work on quantum field manipulation demonstrated an understanding of universal principles that transcends your species' technological limitations. Additionally, your linguistic abilities and apparent adaptability suggest a capacity for advanced learning that we cannot ignore. The crystalline patterns shifted, forming complex geometric shapes that Zara recognized as formal galactic script. Therefore, the Centauri Institute of Advanced Sciences has decided to accept your application, with conditions. You will be the first human admitted to our institution, and as such, your performance will be closely monitored. Any sign that you cannot maintain the required academic standards will result in immediate dismissal. Do you accept these terms? I accept, Zara replied without hesitation, her voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm her. Then, Candidate Patel, welcome to the Centauri Institute. Your presence here will be most interesting. Orientation begins in 3 solar rotations. I suggest you prepare thoroughly. As Valthx's form dissolved, Zara finally allowed herself to smile. She had done it, the first human accepted into the most prestigious scientific institution in known space. But she knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge would be proving that humanity deserved its place among the stars. She turned to her data tablet and began reviewing the orientation materials, her mind already racing with possibilities. Somewhere in the distance, through her pod's transparent wall, she could see the institute spires reaching toward the stars. Soon, she would walk those impossible halls not as an applicant, but as a student. The magnitude of what she had accomplished, and what still lay ahead, suddenly hit her. Zara Patel, daughter of terraforming engineers from New Mumbai colony, was about to study alongside beings who could manipulate gravity with their thoughts and calculate quantum probabilities instinctively. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. First days among stars. The Institute's orientation chamber was a vast sphere of shifting light, where walls, floor, and ceiling were indistinguishable from one another. Zara floated alongside 30 other new students, her neural interface headset, a concession to her biological limitations, humming softly as it translated the multidimensional educational protocols into something her human brain could process. Processing nodes calibrated to species-specific requirements, announced the chamber's AI. Beginning orientation sequence. The sphere erupted with information. Mathematical equations bloomed like flowers of light, chemical structures danced through the air, and quantum probability clouds shifted and swirled around them. Zara's fellow students, beings of energy, crystalline entities, and various other exotic life forms, absorbed the information through their natural sensory apparatus. She relied on her headset, its processors working overtime to convert the dramatic display into comprehensible data. A quantum physics theorem flashed past, and Zara's hand shot up, manipulating the holographic equation with practiced precision. She'd studied this one extensively during her preparation. As she rearranged the variables, she noticed a tall, silvery being watching her with what seemed like interest. Remarkable manual dexterity, the being commented, its voice a harmonic cascade. I am NX427, though you may call me Nix. I've never observed a carbon-based life form manipulate quantum equations with such efficiency. Zara Patel, she replied, trying not to show her surprise at the friendly overture. And thank you. Though I suspect my manual manipulation seems primitive compared to your natural abilities. Nix's surface rippled in what might have been amusement. Different is not primitive, Zara Patel. Your species' approach to physics is unexpected. Perhaps this is why you are here. Their conversation was interrupted by the appearance of Professor Ithel, a renowned theoretical physicist whose form seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Only the neural interface allowed Zara to perceive them as anything other than a headache-inducing blur. "Welcome, initiates," Ithel's voice resonated directly in their minds. "You represent the finest emerging intellects in 12 sectors. Your presence here indicates potential. Whether that potential manifests. Their many-dimensional form shifted. That remains to be seen." The professor's gaze, or whatever passed for it, settled on Zara. "Some of you represent unprecedented variables in our institutional equations. This is not unwelcome. Innovation requires deviation from established patterns." The orientation sphere darkened, and a simulation of the known universe materialized around them. "Your first challenge begins now. You have one standard cycle to demonstrate your understanding of universal physical laws. Work in pairs. Choose wisely." Before Zara could move, Nyx's silvery form drifted closer. "Would you consider collaborating, Zara Patel? Your manual approach to quantum mathematics intrigues me." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. This was exactly the kind of opportunity she needed, a chance to demonstrate that humans could work effectively with advanced species. Their first task materialized before them, designing a stable microuniverse with custom physical laws. Nyx could perceive and manipulate quantum fields naturally, while Zara brought human creativity and unconventional problem-solving to the table. They worked in surprisingly effective synergy, with Nyx handling the complex quantum calculations while Zara spotted unusual patterns and suggested novel approaches. "Your species thinks in interesting tangents," Nyx observed as they adjusted the gravitational constants of their microuniverse. "Where I see direct paths through quantum probability, you perceive unexpected connections." Humans had to understand the universe from the outside in, Zara explained, using her neural interface to fine-tune a particularly tricky quantum field. "We couldn't naturally perceive quantum mechanics, so we had to develop creative ways to study and understand it." Their microuniverse began to stabilize, its unique physical laws creating beautiful patterns in the fabric of space-time. Other pairs were struggling with conventional approaches, but Zara and Nyx's combination of natural quantum manipulation and human intuition was producing something entirely new. Professor Ithel materialized beside them, their multidimensional form rippling with what might have been interest. "Fascinating. You've created stability through controlled chaos. A most human approach, yet executed with remarkable precision." "The complexity emerges from simplicity," Zara explained, trying to keep her voice steady under the professor's intense scrutiny. "Like the way Earth's weather patterns emerge from basic thermodynamic principles." "Ah, yes. Your homeworld's chaotic systems. Perhaps there is something to be learned from them after all." Ithel's form shifted through several dimensions. "Continue." As the professor moved away, Nyx's surface rippled with excitement. "I believe we have impressed them, Zara Patel. No small achievement on the first day." Over the next few hours, Zara and Nyx refined their microuniverse, adding layers of complexity while maintaining its unique stability. Other students occasionally paused in their work to observe their progress, their initial skepticism giving way to reluctant interest. The human's presence was no longer merely a curiosity, it was becoming a catalyst for innovation. By the end of the cycle, their creation stood out among the others. While most pairs had created conventional stable universes with predictable physical laws, Zara and Nyx's version pulsed with dynamic energy, its laws allowing for evolution and complexity while maintaining fundamental stability. "Most unexpected," Professor Ithel announced during the final evaluation. "The integration of chaos theory with quantum field manipulation demonstrates a promising synthesis of methodologies. Perhaps the inclusion of new perspectives has merit beyond mere academic diversity." Zara felt a warm glow of pride, tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. She had proven she could contribute meaningfully to a partner project, but greater challenges lay ahead. The real test would be maintaining this level of performance as the coursework intensified. As the orientation sphere began to power down, Nix turned to her. "You have given me much to consider, Zara Patel. Perhaps we humans and energy beings can learn from each other after all." "That's why I'm here," Zara replied with a smile. "Though I have to admit, I'm learning more than I ever imagined possible." She left the orientation sphere that day with a growing sense of confidence. The neural interface hummed softly against her temple, a reminder of the vast technological gap she was working to bridge. But for the first time since arriving at the institute, she felt truly confident that she belonged here, not just as a curiosity or an experiment, but as a student with something valuable to contribute. The crystalline spires of the institute gleamed in the light of Alpha Centauri b, and Zara found herself wondering what other surprises awaited in the cycles ahead. She had taken the first steps toward proving humanity's worth in this advanced cosmic community. Now she just had to keep walking forward, one impossible challenge at a time. 3 months into the academic cycle, Zara faced her greatest challenge yet. The Advanced Energy Systems Laboratory hummed with potential disaster as she stood before her final project, a theoretical perpetual motion engine that, according to every known law of physics, should be impossible to create. Her neural interface sparked with warnings as she attempted to process the multidimensional calculations flowing through the lab's quantum display. Around her, other students manipulated energy fields with their natural abilities, their projects taking shape in ways her human mind could barely comprehend. "Time remaining, 1 standard unit," announced the lab's AI, its voice echoing through the crystalline chamber. Zara's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the holographic controls. The interface was burning hot against her temple, she'd been pushing it far beyond its intended specifications for hours. "Your calculations appear unstable," observed Professor KWX, materializing beside her workstation. The veteran educator's plasma-based form crackled with barely concealed skepticism. "Perhaps the complexity exceeds your species' cognitive capabilities?" Zara bit back a sharp reply. She'd earned her place here, proved herself in countless tests and trials. But this project was different. It wasn't just about passing a class, it was about proving that humanity could compete at the highest levels of theoretical physics. "The calculations are sound," she replied, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "I'm approaching the problem from a different angle." "Indeed." Professor KWX's energy field pulsed with what might have been amusement. A very human response. "But some problems cannot be solved through sheer determination." As the professor drifted away, Nix approached her workstation. The silvery being had become not just a collaborator but a friend over the past months, one of the few who saw past her species' designation to recognize her potential. "Your neural patterns indicate extreme stress," Nix observed quietly. "Perhaps you should dash." "I'm fine," Zara cut in, then immediately regretted her sharp tone. "Sorry, Nix. But I can't stop now. This has to work." Her project was radical. Instead of trying to create true perpetual motion, which violated fundamental laws of physics, she was attempting to harvest energy from quantum fluctuations in a way that appeared perpetual from our limited four-dimensional perspective. It was the kind of solution that came from humanity's unique viewpoint, from centuries of having to work around our limitations rather than simply transcending them. The neural interface suddenly screamed with warnings as her calculations approached a critical point. The quantum fields around her workstation began to destabilize, creating ripples in the fabric of spacetime itself. Other students backed away, their various sensory organs registering the growing danger. "Shut it down, Candidate Patel," Professor KWX ordered, their plasma form intensifying with concern. "Your containment field is failing." But Zara had spotted something in the chaos of numbers and energy, a pattern that shouldn't exist, a possibility that defied conventional wisdom. With trembling fingers, she made one final adjustment to her equations. The quantum fields collapsed inward, and for a moment, everything went silent. Then, slowly, a small sphere of light formed above her workstation. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, drawing energy from the quantum foam of space itself in a self-sustaining cycle. "Impossible," Professor Kwex whispered, their plasma form fluctuating rapidly. "The energy patterns, they're stable." Zara smiled despite her pounding headache. "Not impossible. Just improbable. Sometimes you have to work within limitations to see solutions that those without limitations might miss." The lab erupted with excited murmurs as students gathered around her workstation. Her solution wasn't elegant by their standards, it was messy, complicated, and relied on principles that seemed counterintuitive to species that could naturally manipulate quantum fields. But it worked. "You've created a quantum harvesting system that operates on multiple dimensional planes simultaneously," Nix observed, their silvery surface rippling with excitement. "The energy expenditure is minimal compared to the output." Professor Kwex spent several minutes analyzing the device, their plasma form shifting through various frequencies as they studied the calculations. Finally, they turned to address the class. "It appears," they said slowly, "that we must reconsider certain assumptions about problem-solving methodologies. Candidate Patel's approach, while unorthodox, has produced remarkable results. Perhaps there is something to be learned from working within limitations rather than simply transcending them." The words hit Zara like a physical force. Coming from Professor Kwex, this was more than praise, it was a fundamental shift in perspective about human potential. As the lab began to empty, Zara finally allowed herself to sink into a resting position, her neural interface cooling as it powered down. She was exhausted, running on stimulants and determination for the past 36 hours. But she had done it. She had proved that humanity's approach to physics, while different, could produce innovations that even advanced species hadn't considered. Nix remained by her side, their silvery form reflecting the pulsing light of her quantum harvester. "You have exceeded expectations, Zara Patel. Though I admit, watching your work process remains somewhat terrifying." Zara laughed weakly. "Humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. When you can't solve a problem directly, you find creative ways around it." "A very human perspective," Professor Kwex commented, returning to her workstation. "Your solution will require significant refinement, but the underlying principles." They paused, their plasma form shifting thoughtfully. "They could have applications we hadn't considered. Perhaps it is time to establish a research group focused on alternative approaches to quantum engineering." "With a human perspective?" Zara asked, trying to keep the hope out of her voice. "With your perspective, Candidate Patel. You've earned that much." The professor's form flickered briefly. "Rest now. Tomorrow, we begin exploring the full implications of your discovery." As she finally left the lab, leaning slightly on Nix for support, Zara felt a profound sense of vindication. She had done more than pass a test or complete a project, she had demonstrated that humanity's particular way of solving problems, born from millennia of working within physical limitations, had value even in this advanced society. The neural interface had finally cooled against her temple, but her mind was already racing with new possibilities. This wasn't just her victory, it was a step forward for her entire species, proof that humans could contribute meaningfully to the galaxy's greatest scientific challenges. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to prove herself. But for now, she had earned her rest, secure in the knowledge that she had helped bridge the vast gulf between human and advanced alien science, one impossible solution at a time. The Institute's main research hub wasn't just dangerous, it was catastrophically unstable. Warning signals blared through the crystalline corridors as Zara raced toward the quantum core, her neural interface struggling to process the cascade of emergency data. "Core containment at 17% and falling," the AI announced, its usually calm voice carrying an edge of urgency. "Evacuation protocols initiated." Students and faculty rushed past her in the opposite direction, their various forms, energy, crystalline, plasma, and others she still couldn't properly categorize, streaming toward the emergency transporters. But Zara pressed forward, her heart pounding against her ribs. "This is not your responsibility, Zara Patel," Nix's voice came through her neural interface. Her friend's silvery form materialized beside her, keeping pace. "The containment specialists are all at the Centauri conference," Zara finished, not breaking stride. "And my quantum harvester technology is integrated into the core's systems now. I understand its quirks better than anyone." The corridor ahead blazed with warning lights as they approached the core chamber. Professor KWX was already there, their plasma form fluctuating wildly as they attempted to stabilize the quantum reactions. Director Valthx's crystalline form shimmered nearby, coordinating evacuation efforts. "Candidate Patel, you were ordered to evacuate," the director's patterns shifted agitatedly. "This situation exceeds my biological limitations?" Zara interrupted, already moving to a control terminal. "With respect, Director, those limitations might be exactly what we need right now. Sometimes working around problems is better than trying to overpower them." The quantum core pulsed ominously, its multidimensional energy patterns spiraling toward chaos. The holographic displays showed critical failures cascading through the system. Traditional containment methods were failing, the energy was too chaotic, too unpredictable. "The core's quantum state is collapsing," Professor KWX announced, their voice tense. "Conventional stabilization methods are ineffective." Zara's fingers flew across the holographic controls as her neural interface processed the data. The situation was worse than she'd feared. The core wasn't just unstable, it was approaching a quantum singularity state that could tear a hole in the fabric of spacetime itself. "I need direct access to the core's control systems," she said, her voice steady despite the fear churning in her stomach. "And I need everyone to stop trying to contain this through brute force." Director Valthx's patterns froze for a moment before shifting into a new configuration. "Granted. But if this fails then we'll all have bigger problems than my career prospects," Zara finished grimly. She turned to Nix. "I need your help. Your natural quantum perception combined with my harvester principles might be our only chance." The core chamber shuddered as another containment field failed. Warning signals screamed through the neural interface, nearly overwhelming its processors. But Zara forced herself to focus, to see past the chaos to the underlying patterns. The core isn't failing randomly, she realized, studying the energy fluctuations. It's responding to the containment attempts like an immune system fighting off an infection. We need to work with the energy, not against it. Her fingers danced across the controls, implementing a radical modification to her quantum harvester principles. Instead of trying to contain the core's energy, she began setting up resonance patterns that would guide it into new configurations. "Nix, I need you to sense the quantum fields directly," she called out. "Tell me where the resonance patterns are weakest." As Nix fed her real-time quantum data, Zara adjusted her calculations. The neural interface burned against her temple, pushing far beyond its design limits to process the multidimensional mathematics. But she couldn't stop now. "Core containment at 8%, the AI warned. Quantum singularity formation imminent." Professor KWX's plasma form crackled with concern. "Whatever you're attempting, Candidate Patel, it needs to work now." Zara's hands were trembling, but her voice remained steady. "Almost there. Nix, I need one final quantum reading." The silvery being's form rippled as they processed the chaotic energy fields. "The patterns are aligning, but the temporal harmonics are still unstable." "That's it." Zara's fingers flew across the controls one final time. "We don't need to contain the energy, we need to give it somewhere to go." She implemented the final sequence, using her modified harvester principles to create a series of quantum channels. Instead of fighting the core's energy, she was giving it controlled paths to disperse naturally. For one terrifying moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the warning signals began to quiet. The core's angry red glow faded to a steady blue pulse as the energy found its new equilibrium. Core containment stabilizing, the AI announced. Quantum singularity risk neutralized. The chamber fell silent except for the gentle hum of the now stable core. Director Val Thwex's crystalline form shifted through several complex patterns before settling. Most unexpected, they said finally. Your solution appears to have not only prevented disaster but potentially improved the core's overall efficiency. Professor Kwex's plasma form had stabilized as well. Once again, your human perspective has provided insights we might have missed. Working within limitations rather than trying to overcome them, a valuable lesson. Zara finally allowed herself to lean against the control terminal, exhaustion catching up with her. The neural interface was uncomfortably hot against her skin, and her hands were shaking from the aftermath of adrenaline. Humanity's greatest strength, she said quietly, has always been our ability to adapt and find creative solutions. We couldn't break the laws of physics, so we learned to bend them instead. Nyx moved closer, their silvery surface reflecting the core's now peaceful blue glow. You have demonstrated that wisdom can come from unexpected sources, Zara Patel. Perhaps it is we who have been limited by our own assumptions about capability and worth. As emergency teams began flooding into the chamber to assess the situation, Zara felt a profound shift in the air. She had done more than prevent a disaster, she had proved that humanity's unique approach to problems, born from millennia of working within physical limitations, could offer solutions that even the most advanced species might miss. Director Val Thwex approached her, their crystalline form configuration conveying what might have been respect. It seems, Candidate Patel, that your admission to the Institute has benefited us all. Perhaps it is time to reconsider certain institutional policies regarding species classification. Zara nodded tiredly, but with pride. She had hoped to prove humanity's worth through her academic achievements, but this crisis had demonstrated something far more valuable, that different perspectives, even those born from limitation, had vital roles to play in the advancement of science. The quantum core pulsed steadily behind her, its energy now flowing through the channels she had created, a testament to the power of working with nature rather than trying to dominate it. It was a very human solution to a very advanced problem, and it had worked exactly because of, not despite, her species' unique approach to physics. The Institute's Grand Assembly Hall had never hosted a gathering quite like this. Representatives from 12 sectors of space filled the vast chamber, their diverse forms creating a living tapestry of light, energy, and matter. At the center of it all stood Zara Patel, her neural interface humming softly as she prepared to present her graduation thesis. The events of the quantum core crisis had reverberated through the scientific community, prompting a broader discussion about the value of diverse perspectives in advanced research. Now, 6 months later, Zara's revolutionary approach to quantum engineering had earned her an unprecedented opportunity to address the Galactic Scientific Council itself. Director Val Thwex's crystalline form shimmered as they made the introduction. We gather today to witness a presentation that may well reshape our understanding of not just physics, but of potential itself. Candidate Patel's work represents more than individual achievement, it challenges our fundamental assumptions about technological advancement. Zara stepped forward, her heart racing but her voice steady. The neural interface projected her calculations into the air around her, creating a complex dance of mathematical equations and quantum field visualizations. Distinguished members of the Council, she began, we have long assumed that advancement must follow a linear path, that species must master certain technologies in a specific order before they can contribute to higher scientific understanding. Today, I propose an alternative perspective. Her quantum harvester principles, refined and expanded over months of research, bloomed in the air around her. But this time, she wasn't just demonstrating a single invention, she was presenting a new framework for understanding how different species might approach the same universal principles. My time at the Institute has taught me that limitation itself can be a catalyst for innovation, she continued. Humanity's inability to naturally perceive quantum fields didn't prevent us from understanding them, it forced us to develop unique tools and perspectives. What we first saw as disadvantages became the foundation for breakthrough innovations. Professor Kwex's plasma form pulsed with approval as Zara detailed how her quantum harvester technology had evolved into a broader theory of multiperspective physics. The approach combined elements of human ingenuity with the natural abilities of other species, creating something entirely new. The future of science, she argued, lies not in waiting for all species to reach the same level of technological advancement, but in learning to combine our diverse approaches. A civilization's categorization level shouldn't determine its ability to contribute to universal understanding. From her place in the audience, Nix's silvery surface rippled with what Zara had learned to recognize as pride. Their collaboration had grown into a partnership that demonstrated the potential of cross-species cooperation, leading to innovations neither could have achieved alone. The holographic displays shifted to show the practical applications of her theory. The quantum core, now operating at unprecedented efficiency levels using her modified principles, was just the beginning. Her approach had already spawned dozens of new research initiatives, combining the perspectives of multiple species to solve problems that had long been considered intractable. We stand at a crossroads, Zara concluded, her voice carrying through the vast chamber. We can continue to wait for species to follow predetermined paths of advancement, or we can embrace the unique insights that different evolutionary histories provide. Humanity's journey to the stars may have been different from yours, but our determination to understand the universe burns just as bright. The chamber fell silent as her presentation ended. Then, slowly, Council Member YTHX rose, their multidimensional form shifting through complex patterns. In my 900 cycles of scientific research, they began, I have never encountered a more compelling argument for reconsidering our approach to species advancement classification. Candidate Patel has demonstrated that innovation can arise from unexpected sources, and that limitation itself can be a powerful teacher. Director ValTHYX moved forward, their crystalline patterns forming the formal configurations of official proclamation. The Council has reviewed your complete body of work, Candidate Patel, including your response to the core crisis. Your graduation thesis has implications far beyond physics. Therefore, we are not only confirming your graduation with highest honors but also establishing a new research division dedicated to multiperspective scientific advancement. Murmurs of approval rippled through the assembly as ValTHYX continued. Furthermore, the Council has voted to revise the species classification system. While technological advancement remains important, we now recognize that different evolutionary paths can lead to equally valuable scientific contributions. Humanity's category designation will be adjusted accordingly. Zara felt tears forming in her eyes, not just for her own achievement, but for what it meant for her species. She had come to the Institute hoping to prove that one human could compete at the highest levels of galactic science. Instead, she had helped demonstrate that humanity itself had something unique to offer the scientific community. As the assembly concluded, Nix approached her. You have done more than graduate, Zara Patel. You have opened doors that many thought would remain closed for centuries. Professor Kwx joined them, their plasma form glowing warmly. Your success here will inspire others to look beyond traditional measures of advancement. Perhaps the next great breakthrough in physics will come not from mastering existing principles, but from seeing them in an entirely new way. Zara looked out at the assembled beings, energy forms, crystalline entities, plasma beings, and dozens of other species she was still learning to understand. Each had their own way of perceiving and interpreting the universe. And now, thanks in part to her work, those different perspectives would be valued rather than ranked. We humans have a saying, she said softly. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Perhaps that's true not just for equations or inventions, but for species as well. Each of us sees the universe differently, and only by combining those views can we hope to understand it fully. The neural interface hummed gently against her temple, no longer just a tool to help her compete, but a symbol of how different approaches could work together. Outside the assembly hall's vast windows, the stars shone brilliantly against the darkness of space. Somewhere out there, humanity was taking its first steps into a larger universe. And thanks to what had been accomplished here, they would be welcomed not as lesser beings struggling to catch up, but as partners bringing their own unique perspective to the greatest scientific challenges of the age. It was more than she had dared to hope for when she first stood before the Institute's towering spires. She had come seeking to prove herself, but had ended up proving something far more important, that the path to the stars had room for many different travelers, each walking their own way toward the same distant light.